Hey guys, well as you can see, we're out and about for this review today. You know, the sun's shining, the seagulls are out and about, and it's a little bit windy, so to speak, as you can probably kind of tell. We are standing behind the great HMS Carolines for this review. We're going to be trying to kind of tie our scenery into kind of the film reviews that we're doing. In this case, it's going to be The Godfather Part 2. So I hope you enjoy this as much as we are.
My father taught me many things here. He taught me in this room. He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
Hello, welcome to another edition of The Real Busters. I'm Neill, this is Joe.
Hey guys.
And today we are reviewing The Godfather Part 2.
If anything in this life is certain, if history's taught us anything, it's that you can kill anyone.
Is it worth it?
My father taught me many things here. He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Godfather is a term of affection, one of respect.
This is the business we've chosen. I mean, you've won. You want to wipe everybody out?
I don't feel I have to wipe everybody out, Tom. Just my enemies.
Yeah, that was a kind of a treat to see on the big screen like the first one, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was fantastic.
I mean, how could we not go and see it, you know what I mean? Especially in the new restoration of 4K. You know, it was a sold out screen as well, wasn't it?
It was indeed. The KFT,
It was.
a smaller cinema.
It was.
But it was a sold out screen, so...
Yeah, it was a better environment, I thought. It was KFT.
Yeah, because I think KFT has this kind of atmosphere for those kind of films.
It does.
The less commercial feel to it.
And in case you're wondering, QFT, or Queen's Film Theatre, is an independent cinema at Queen's University in Belfast, Northern Ireland. That's what they're talking about here, and it was founded in 1968. And when it first opened, it was focusing on art house and indie and world cinema, playing an important role in the cultural life of Belfast, serving as an important venue for events such as the Belfast Festival of Queens, Belfast Film Festival, and Cinemagic. So it's basically part of the Europa Cinemas network, and they show various movies, but not likely to be the blockbusters. In this particular case, it was showing the Godfather Remastered movies. Anyway, that's enough about QFT. Back to the review.
You know, and it was nice because we actually brought our friend Ian to see, because he had never actually seen parts 2 and part 3. So it was kind of interesting to kind of get his take on them, you know, because obviously we have seen these films, you know, many times. So it was kind of refreshing to kind of hear someone who has really never seen these sequels, so to speak, you know. But again, like when we reviewed the first one, you know, what else can we actually say about, you know, part 2?
Yeah, but one of the things I always think is, I believe it's the first sequel to win an Oscar.
It is indeed, yeah. Best Oscar, yeah.
Best Picture, wasn't it?
Yes, Best Picture, yeah. It was nominated for, what was it? Was it 6 Oscars? Six Academy Awards or something, and it was the first one that Robert De Niro won for Best Supporting Actor, playing a young Vito Corleone. And that was one of the things that I really liked about the film, because the fact that you've got two stories going, side by side. Like today, if it was being made today, it would be two separate films because the studio system. But it's a very daring and ambitious film, because you got to think back to the period of when it was made. Like the first Godfather came out, and people weren't sure how it was going to go, and obviously it turned out to be this enormous success. And then obviously a sequel was incoming. But Francis initially didn't want to do a sequel.
I think that even Al Pacino was a bit reluctant to do
Yeah,
that.
Al was really reluctant. He's kind of like, listen, we've done this, amazing thing. Why would you want to go and do a sequel?
But I think it's a unique film in its own right. It's as you said, something that we wouldn't do today.
Yeah.
Because
no way.
It's essentially two films in one, and they're paralleling each other.
Yeah.
So you've got the prequel and sequel together.
Yeah.
The prequel of Vito and how he rose to the power that we saw of the kind of as he was established as the Godfather in the original film. You saw his rise in the prequel element, the flashbacks, and then intercutting that with Michael's story, which started his downfall.
Yeah.
As the new head of the.
Yeah. And it's very jarring too that it jumps around. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you've got Vito's part and then you've got Michael's part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It gives it like sections. And today some audiences would find that, as I said, very jarring to kind of keep up with. But I thought it was excellently well edited and paced.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, I personally felt it was not jarring at all. I felt that the cuts in between were done naturally, and it didn't feel like you were losing what was happening because you jumped in from one story to the next. I felt it was a nice balance of the two stories.
It was, and what I really liked about it was, obviously, it's most of the original cast and crew returning, so it does feel like it's a natural progression in the story. Do you know what I mean? Yes, you have new characters coming in like Frankie and stuff, but it feels like, time has not really changed, kind of.
I mean, you still got Keaton, you still got
Yeah.
Mark Duvall,
John Cazale. Yeah, because usually, it's when they tend to do sequels, you kind of feel like, things have really changed. But this actually felt like it was the same film, just continuing on, so to speak.
It did feel like the second part of an ongoing story.
It really did. It really did. And the fact that they got James Caan back for that one scene towards the end, remember?
Yeah.
The birthday party scene.
And didn't I read rightly that he demanded the same fee for that one scene and his entire fee for the original?
He did
Godfather?
indeed, yeah. Because originally they wanted Marlon back, because you see Vito off screen. They go out when he arrives, but Marlon was asking for astronomical money, and they were like, "No, we can't afford it."
Also, I heard that Marlon Brando was having some problems with Parliament at the time as well. That
Yes.
That was another reason why he didn't come back to do this thing.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of it, but yeah. Well, I suppose we should talk about the performances in this film, because look at the cast.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You've Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, John Cazale, Lee Strasberg.
Yeah,
I mean,
a legend.
A legend.
And this is one of Robert De Niro's earliest films, wasn't it?
It was. I think it was. Yeah. It's probably, I think, maybe his second big mainstream film. Yeah, because obviously the first one was Scorsese's Mean Streets and stuff. But I actually would say, just for my own preference, that Al Pacino's performance as Michael is better in this film than it was in the first film. Would you agree?
Yeah. How would you define it as a better performance? Because he's fantastic at both films.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, look, I'm not taking anything away from his performance in the first film, but in this one, he is really growing into Michael.
Yeah, he's darker, I think.
Yeah, he's a lot colder. Especially in the scene towards the end with Kay. Where there's no dialogue at all. She sees him and he just goes over and he just closes the door.
Well, I think what he does with his eyes before he loses it
Absolutely.
is fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, the final shot of him just sitting there, just pondering, and you say to yourself, what is going through his mind? And that's genius. That's the sign of a really great actor. when you can evoke something like that with no words. It is absolutely amazing in my opinion. You know, and as I say, he was fantastic in the first film because you've seen that transition from a guy who wanted nothing to do with this, and you know, and ended up becoming the exact thing that they didn't want to become. You know, so this is, you know, the extension of that.
And it's showing, and it's expanding upon that aspect we saw towards the end of the first one, where he's actually becoming more ruthless than his father.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He's a lot colder than what Vito was. You know, and a lot more ruthless. You know, he is not going to take anything lightly. You know,
especially when he was betrayed by his brother.
Yeah, absolutely. And John Cazale, I mean, the guy, you know, sorely missed. You know, but John, like, he was, you know, you seen Fredo in the first film, you know, and you kind of knew he was the weaker brother. And in this film, you know, you kind of felt his pain and betrayal, because there's that great scene, you know, when he says to Michael after he found out that he gave Michael up, you know, and he's kind of like, you know, that was the reason why he had done it. You know, he was kind of like, you know, you just kind of ignored me in this sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like, Sonny never really gave him much attention. You know, and Michael gave him some attention before, you know, he got roped into all this, you know, so you kind of feel like, you know, he was kind of the brother that was kind of shunned in this business.
And he was the middle child, so...
He was the middle child,
so
yeah.
Technically he should have been the next in line following Sonny's death.
Exactly.
But he was overlooked in favour of Michael.
Yeah. You know, and there's that great moment in it where I thought it was heartbreaking, you know, when, again, Michael... he really doesn't raise his voice. Tell him, you know, when he finds out that they betrayed him, you know. But yeah, like, even in that scene, you know, when Michael finds out that Fredo has betrayed him, you know, and the way Al Pacino plays it, you know, he rarely loses his voice, but you can tell the anger in him, you know, and the most ruthless and coldest thing that he could do is, you know, he disowns him, you know, and he says, tell Al Neill, who is Michael's bodyguard, you know, and he says, listen, I don't want anything to happen to him while my mother's alive. And that is just utter ruthlessness, you know, and it's ironic because shortly after that, spoilers, you know, their mother passes away, and then you're kind of like, crap, you know, what's going to happen to Fredo, you know. But yeah, John Cazale is just a marvel in my opinion. You know, he's such an underrated actor, you know, and he died way too young, so to speak. But it's nice to know that his legacy lives on in these movies, you know, because it is a powerhouse performance. It's a performance that really gets overlooked. Do you not think, Neill?
Yeah,
you know, amongst, you know, because it's a very ensemble cast, you know.
Because everyone thinks about Marlon Brando and Al Pacino, but there's a lot of actors who are in The Godfather that I feel are never thought of.
Yeah. You know, and one of the big ones for me, obviously, you know, with our film knowledge, you know, is Lee Strasberg. You know, now a lot of people are probably like, you know, going, who's Lee Strasberg? You know, well, he was, you know, a mentor to a lot of famous actors, you know, like Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, De Niro, you know, they all went to Lee Strasberg, his acting academy in New York, you know, in the 50s and the 60s, you know, and while not a true actor per se, you know, Lee would, you know, take on some roles, and I think this is probably his most famous role to date, so to speak, you know. What I really liked about him and Roth was, again, even when the chips were down and things were, you know, not going according to plan, so to speak, you know, he rarely raised his voice. You know, it was all in the mind, so to speak, always calculating, you know, especially with that scene when he confronts Michael about is he in the deal or is he not in the deal, you know, and he gets a little bit high pitched, but, you know, he rarely shouts, you know, and that's what I liked. It was kind of like mirror images of Michael. You know, they rarely kind of lost their temper, so to speak, you know, which I think is much better, you know, than shouting and ranting and raving, you know, as well Michael does in the film. And
but he doesn't do it in a very over-the-top
no
way.
You know, yeah, he's not phoning it in, so to speak. I think that one of the strongest things in the film for me, and again it would probably get overlooked, is when Kay reveals, again spoilers, that she had an abortion. You know, it wasn't a miscarriage, it was an abortion, and when that sequence comes up, you just, even before Pacino loses it, you can just feel the anger, you know, and oh, it is such an amazing moment in the film for me anyway, you know, and it's heart-wrenching, you know, because as Kay says, you know, what did you expect me to do? You know, I'm not going to, you know, bury your child into a world like this. You know what I mean? And again, that harkens right back to the first film, you know, when she says, Michael, you said you would never become a guy like your dad, and now that he has, you know, she's like, well, I've lost my husband to this, you know, and she's like, by damned, I'm not going to lose my kids. And this, you know, it's a really crucial moment in the film, so it is. For me personally, anyway.
It is a great moment, and obviously, throughout the film, you see how this life is a strain on Kay.
Absolutely. You can tell in Kay's face, you know, she's like, I can't even have a simple family celebration. You know, this dictates everything. You know, but then again, it's the life that you pay for.
And then also the assassination attempt on Michael in the bedroom.
Absolutely, which, you know, it comes... I was actually kind of struck at how early that sequence comes in the film. But again, it has to, you know, it helps set up, you know, who do you trust, who do you not trust, you know, and especially, and I love that scene of when, after that, when Michael kind of knows that it was him and Roth that kind of set it up, but when he goes to visit him in Miami, he underplays it. He plays it like, you know, he doesn't kind of think that it was him at all, but you know that he does know that's him, you know, and later on, you know, you slowly unravel that, you know, and I think that's very well structured in the film. You know, it's, you reveal it piece by piece by piece.
Yeah. I think the Godfather films are films that they allow the pace, they allow things to nurture and develop.
Absolutely.
At a pace that's very organic, and it's not cutting to next thing. It's not cutting to this here. It's building it up in a very natural progression, and
absolutely,
I think it's a little lost in today's films.
Yeah. I mean, these are films of patience. You know, like today's audiences, like when we seen it at the QFT, it was a mature audience. You know, I kind of guess there was some people there that haven't seen, like our friend Ian hadn't seen the films, but you know, Ian really liked it. He actually had said to me coming out of it, I says, what did you think of it? And he says, Joe, that was much better than I anticipated, you know, because people have that sequel curse idea, you know, especially of a film of the first classic, you know, it's kind of like, is this really going to take away its reputation or dampen it? But to me, The Godfather Part 2 only enhances the first film, because there's things in Part 2 that you kind of look back on Part 1 and it kind of enhances certain things in Part 1. You know, one of the examples of that for me would be Tom Hagen, who I think is vastly underrated in these films, played by Robert Duvall. You know, and he's there in the first film to a degree, but in this film, you know, Michael ranks him up a bit, and he's given a little bit more to do, so to speak. And he's a guy that he just wants the best for Michael and his family. You know, even when he has to do the most shadiest of stuff, you know, he just, at the end of the day, he just wants Michael's seal of approval. You know what I mean? He's just a working hard guy, you know. But I think Duvall is severely underrated in these films. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because Robert Duvall underplays him, and
he does,
and he makes him more approachable, like the guy you can easily approach. He's the guy who can you know, he doesn't raise his voice or lower his voice, but he has this kind of, you know, approachable attitude that makes him very, you know, an easygoing guy. Yeah,
I always used to joke that Tom in these films is us. Do you know what I mean? He's neutral.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? In the midst of all this chaos, he is us.
Because he's not a family member. He's not a brother by blood.
Yeah,
he's adopted. Yeah, into the family.
Exactly.
So he's not. So he is a brother, but he's not by blood.
Yeah.
So he's probably got that slight outsider element.
Yeah.
To this.
Yeah. And I do have to bring up that scene towards the end of the film when the flashback scene tells Vito's birthday party and they got James Caan back. And having seen it, because I hadn't seen The Godfather Part 2 in a long time, and having seen that sequence and where it's positioned in the film, you know, I think it's just after he kills Fredo.
Yes.
It's not long after that, and then you have that flashback scene when all the brothers are sitting around the table, and just seeing it and seeing Michael sat at that table, and he's so innocent, You know what I mean? And like all the usual stuff's going along with Sonny, you know, and Fredo, you know, and Tom. But Michael's just sat there, and then he reveals that he's signed up for the army.
This is where you see when they start the first one.
Exactly,
He's
you
come
know,
back home.
and there's that thing of, you know, this isn't what Pop wanted for you. You know, and he's like, but it's what I want.
Even the way he's lit in that scene, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it was just the way he said it. You know, he's, you know, and Sonny's like, you know, but, you know, Pop has went out of his way to get you put into college and stuff, you know, and Michael just sits there, you know, and he's so innocent, you know, and he's like, I don't care. This is what I want for myself.
And it makes you feel sad for the life that's been thrust upon Michael.
Exactly. You know, but it just shows you from one contrast to another. Do you know what I mean? In that sequence, he deemed that he wouldn't be what he wanted to become, which was his dad. I think it is worth mentioning, we should talk about the flashback scenes a little bit more, showing a young Vito Corleone,
Yes.
you know, escaping from Italy. And, you know, at such a young age, and then making his way to the United States, you know, and then growing up in New York at a very young age, so to speak, you know.
And slowly becoming the dawn of the town, because he's able to start doing favours for people in the town. So he becomes this respectable figure in the town when he starts standing up to the gangster.
Yeah, the local gangster, whose name has escaped me. But to me, that, you know, a lot of people, you know, if they've never seen part 2 before, and you say, you know, it's like 2 films in one, and they say, oh, it's like a prequel till Vito, and they're kind of, you know, they kind of like, does that element work till it, you know? And I haven't, you know, when I first seen Godfather Part 2, I had the same notion. I was kind of like, is this really going to work? You know, but again, it works perfectly because they blend it so seamlessly.
Oh yes, it works brilliantly.
You know what I mean?
And I do think De Niro is a wonderful addition to this film as well.
He really is.
Because he does excel as the younger Vito, and he does channel elements of Marlon Brando, but at the same time he makes it his own.
Exactly. I love that scene when his friend brings him to the play, and he sees his future wife in the play. You know, and then they go backstage, and then they kind of see the local gangster, you know, demand the money and stuff, you know. And there's just a thing where his friend's like, no, come on, we gotta go. But you see in Vito's eyes, he's kind of like, okay, he's watching this, so to speak. You think, okay, he's catching on to this kind of business, you know. But yeah, and there was also certain comedic aspects later on.
Oh yeah.
You know, with the guy, the landlord, you remember?
Oh,
yes. With the dog, you know. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise who you were, you know.
And he couldn't open the door and stuff. And
he couldn't open the door and stuff,
yeah. Just scared to get out.
Yeah, but even the tracking shot of when Vito's going along the rooftops.
Oh yes.
Do you remember that? You know, it's perfect. Do you know what I mean? And the tension, the build up to that sequence is amazing. It really is, because, you know, because you're like, when's it going to happen? You know, and then it intercuts with the guy entering the building, him coming down from the roof, you know, when is it going to happen, you know. But no, I think the flashback sequences are tremendous. I really do. They're very well done.
It was just a wonderful juxtaposition of the two stories. How we're seeing how, you know, Vito became the Godfather, and what led to where he was at the start of the first one. Yeah. Where at the same time we're just seeing Michael kind of losing it, and
oh yeah, by the end of the film, Michael has lost a lot. Yeah. You know, both external and internal. You know.
So it's one of those films where I think both stories really add to the first one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you see where we getting to in the first one, and then you see in the aftermath of what happened in the first one. Yeah. And it's very rarely you do that in one film. You usually do 2 separate films today. Exactly. Today, yeah, that wouldn't happen today. You know, there'd be so many separate films and spin-offs and whatnot. Yeah. You know, you'd be getting the Godfather of the early years. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's this Paramount show coming up of how they made the Godfather. Yeah. You know, which I'm very intrigued to see. That'll be interesting. Yeah. So we got to talk about the production aspect. You know, having Gordon Willis back as cinematographer really helps, because again, it adds to that natural progression. It ties in with the continuity of the first one. It does. You know, everything seems seamless. You know, in terms of, you know, the way it's lit. You know, have you any highlights of the film for its cinematography? Just the use of natural lights, and, you know, and capturing the atmosphere. Yeah, like a night, especially in the late teens, early 20s. There's a lot of more it's a little bit more softer, kind of more emotionally, well, more kind of innocent looking.
Yeah. Did you? And I also found. Did you find this that Michael's scenes seem to go and get like a lot of shadows and dark and cool colours as the more his story went on in the film?
Yeah, it's like a darker.
Yeah, because the flashback sequences, as you say, are very brightly lit. You know, to give that very kind of early 1920s vibe.
Yeah.
You know,
And it shows Vito in a more positive light than Michael.
it does, and I think that was done on purpose. You know, to show the contrast. You know, so it was really nice to have.
Even how darkly lit when he's watching after Vito gets killed, and he does the shot of Michael watching out the window, the wide angle and the dark levels.
Yes.
You know, add to it.
It does. And of course, Nina Rhoda
Oh yes.
as composer once again. You know, I really liked the score to this as I did to the first film. You know, again, score is really underplayed in certain scenes. You know, it feels like it's only really used when it needs to be. You know, if something dramatic happens.
It's also the start. You know, it's starting the same notes start the film in the same way as the first one.
Yeah.
And it just gets you really. Sets the tone of the film,
It
especially
does.
that opening shot when you just see Michael sitting alone in his chair
Yeah.
at the start of the film.
Yeah, as you say, it starts the whole picture of, it gives you that feel of what you're in for, and that classic theme it tells you everything that you want to know about the film. It really does, it evokes everything, so it's really nice to kind of have.
Is that Italian flavour to the hints at the origins of the Corleone family as well?
It does, yeah. So it's really nice to have them back as composer of the film. Again, that continuity. That really helps.
Yeah, but there is so much about the film. It's also one of the longest films I've seen.
It's a really long film.
It's 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah, and again, by today's audiences,
I may not have the patience for it. But you know
Yeah.
what? I watched the film, and you know what? I did not have a problem. I
we didn't.
enjoyed every moment. In fact, I think Ian said he was just a lot more.
Yeah, that was the other thing that our friend Ian had said, because when we had told him that it was that length, and he's like, I don't think I could sit this length. But when we came out, that's what he did say. He was like, I really wish that this had been longer.
You don't feel good because there's so much. Because there's just so much wonderful stuff in that film.
There is.
And the 2 stories, keep you going, keep you entertained,
Keep you invested.
keep you invested.
Yeah, that's the point of a good film.
And it's not often you get 2 stories for the price of one.
Exactly.
Because it's essentially 2 films. Because you've
Yeah.
got the prequel with Vito growing up, and you've got the sequel with Michael.
Yeah. Expanding his criminal empire.
Starting his downfall.
Yeah.
And because of that, you're intercutting between the 2 stories.
Yeah.
So I think because you're intercutting between those 2 stories, it doesn't feel like there's padding. It doesn't feel like there's things in there for the sake of having it in there. It's brought everything is important to the story.
Yeah.
Because I think, as I said, the Godfather, you are getting those 2 films.
You
are getting 2 stories in there.
Yeah.
Whereas I think sometimes it's like Peter Jackson with Lord of the Rings. Sometimes or not Lord of the Rings, but more so The Hobbit. Did we really need 3 Hobbit films? Because it's a shorter material than the original Lord of the Rings. So sometimes there's extended editions that don't really add much.
Yeah.
So there are times where I think the directors should be told, cut that out. But there are times where they need more, and this is one where I think the balance is exactly right.
Yeah, I think in that kind of sense, like in terms of like Godfather Part 2 and like The Irishman, because you're dealing with such a large canvas, as you say, for Godfather Part 2 you have 2 movies, and in The Irishman you have so many decades, so it does warrant a lengthy runtime, but there is certain scenes that you could maybe trim down, and you could lose maybe 5, 10, 20 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the Superman TV version as well. I mean,
oh yeah.
I mean, Superman is paced right at the 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But the TV version just really doesn't really add anything.
Yeah.
And it's things that don't really add anything to the plot.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes unnecessary. There is times where I think people just like to insert things in there because they've got all this wonderful material.
Yeah.
But there's times where everything Then again, I
That's
love
right.
I love slow burner films as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Especially if the payoff's good,
Exactly.
you know. So our overall thoughts on The Godfather Part 2. So,
Perhaps one of the greatest sequels ever made.
yeah, hands down. It really is. You know, nothing has even came close till it since. You know, what has it been now? It's been, what,
48 years.
48 years now, you know. So, it's a hell of a feat, you know, and obviously, you know, I think Paramount wanted... Well, they kind of went to Francis after that and said, would you do Part 3? And I think at that time, he said no. He said, I think I just wanted to be a duology. You know, I think he said, you know, I've said everything I've wanted to say about, you know, this family and this empire, so...
It took 16 years before we
It
got
took
this.
16 years, you know, for Part 3 or Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone, you know.
This is in the edit, which we'll be reviewing in our next podcast.
Yes, we will be, you know. But, you know, it's like, again, as I said at the beginning of the video, you know, what else can we say that has never not been said, you know, for these films, you know. But we can only just show our love and appreciation of just how good these movies actually are.
And we hope that if you're interested in checking these films out, we hope that you love the film as much as we love it.
Absolutely. And like, guys, you know, if you're watching our review of this and you've never seen the film, do yourself a favour and go and check out these films, because you'll not be disappointed. You really won't. You know, and don't be put off by the lengthy run times of this, that and the other. These films are so well made that you will be engaged with them. I promise. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in once again. Our next review is actually going to be the third and final installment in the Godfather series, which is going to be the new version, which is appropriately titled Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone. So I hope you will check that out when it becomes available. And please, guys, if you like our content, please, you know, subscribe. Feel free to leave a little comment for us. And if you'd like to leave us a little email, guys, it's show@chatschmat. We would like to hear from you guys as we always do.
Indeed.
Yep. So see you next time, guys.
See you next time.